California's monopoly territory is home to 17 million people. It's bigger than most state
families already struggle to pay their bills.
AGD was convicted of 91 felonies.
Really? I mean, what's next?
Graybeard Talks Solar. He is SolarWise.
Welcome to the Graybeard Talks Solar YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, I've got a really special YouTube video for the channel. I'm going to be being interviewed by Megan Blackwell, who is a very successful realtor in the Sacramento area with Amen Real Estate. She wanted to pick my brain on all things solar. And so you're going to be able to be a little fly on the wall and hear our conversation today that we had regarding everything from how power purchase programs work, why I think they're some of the best, cheapest options for people to adopt solar today, the difference between cash and financing. So we're going to take a deep dive into these questions and more. So I'm very, very excited for today's show. So before we jump in, though, please like, share, and subscribe if you are so inclined. Let's keep that solar wisdom rolling to other people in California because the utilities are way too expensive for energy today. They're making people live more uncomfortably than they've ever lived before in their own homes, which is a travesty. So please like, share, subscribe the channel, and just know we have new videos coming out every Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific. So let's jump into my interview with Megan Blackwell. Enjoy.
So really want to hear exactly what is a solar broker and how is that different from somebody just calling the solar company directly, the Sunruns, the Teslas of the world?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I mean, I think obviously solar is not for the faint of heart. There have been a lot of trials and tribulations in the industry in the last couple of years, and a lot of companies that have gone under, even companies that you wouldn't expect to have, had some sort of significant financial challenge. Sunrun, for example, Infinity Energy. So, the big differentiation between us as a solar broker and, kind of doing it on your own or running into somebody at Costco or Home Depot that wants to sell you some solar is that we're primarily homeowner advocates. We've really researched the market. I've gone through about 30 different solar companies trying to find what we have right now, which is 11 really good installers. And so number one, we've vetted some companies. In this environment, as a homeowner layperson, you wouldn't necessarily know what questions to ask to peek behind the financial curtain of a company and understand whether they might be a little bit more on the jeopardized side of what's going on right now. So, for example, in solar, there's something called an M1 milestone payment. So, if a solar company, Sunrun or any of those equivalents, let's say they sell a financed solar system to somebody, and that homeowner is going to move forward with them. In that process, at milestone one, which is they've got a signed agreement, there's been a site inspection, and the homeowner has approved of the solar design, that qualifies as milestone one. And effectively, a solar company can get an advance on that contract. They can go to the finance company and get 80% of the contract value advanced to them. The idea being that they need that money to order the equipment, get ready for installation, pay for permitting, all the stuff that's going in the solar installation. So they get 80% of that. But what we saw with these companies that have gone under is they were advancing against these contracts and then using that as operations capital to further the business. They were robbing from Peter to pay Paul, effectively. They were just buying time. So one of the things I look for as a solar broker is whether or not companies advance on that M1 milestone or not. If they're in good health and they're financially strong, those companies don't tend to advance that way because it puts them in a time limitation and it puts them in a financial potential crunch, right? So that's one area. Another area where we have advocacy is that, if you're an individual homeowner and you go out and get 5 quotes. Now, here would be the process for you. You'd have to call 5 different companies, to have 5 different in-home meetings, to have salespeople come out and tell you all about why they're the best of both worlds. And
I'm already exhausted.
Yeah, exactly, right. And then you don't really get any feedback. Or there's no not feedback, but there's no consistency in the information that's shared. Even the proposals that somebody would give you is different from one company to the next. If you're a homeowner and you have a challenge with your installation, about the only thing that you can do is yell, kick, scream, and write a bad Yelp review or Google review or whatever, but you really don't have any leverage with a company to get whatever the problem is solved if they're not wanting to solve it. Whereas as a solar broker doing a radio show like I've done, when we look at one of these vetted installers, we might have done 30, 40, 50 deals with them in the last year. And when I call them up and say, hey, you got to get out to Megan Blackwell's house here and deal with X, Y, or Z, number one, they're going to take my call. Number two, they're going to be Johnny on the spot to want to get out there because they want to, number three, miss out on 50 more deals in the next year or two, So I think there's a big difference between doing it yourself and then having advocacy. And as a solar broker, we're bringing knowledge, expertise, experience, and a better understanding of what's going on in solar into the guided kind of mentoring and expertise that we share with our homeowners. So that was a very long answer to your short question, but hopefully it helped,
No, it does. And I think, from the realtor standpoint, every time we have a sale with solar involved, no contract, not one is the exact same.
Yeah.
It's complicated for us, and I deal with it every day. I mean, I call you, Sean, and I'm like, you got to explain this to me.
You do. Hey, what's going on with this? What's NIM 2? What's NIM 3?
Yeah.
This is a lease. Is that good or bad? Is this is finance? Like, how do we transfer this? Does this company still exist? I mean, that's just a snapshot, a few of the questions you and I have had.
Exactly. Well, and then having, you and I had that recent interaction with my client who had a very we'll call it fruitful power purchase agreement.
Yeah.
And he was ready to rip it off and go buy his own off Craigslist. So I want to jump into why do you say that a power purchase agreement, or as we call it, a PPA, is the cheapest energy somebody can buy today versus, buying 5 panels off Craigslist for, $5,000 like my client wanted to rip off the 20 that he had for a power purchase agreement and do his own thing.
Yeah, it's a great question. And the only constant is change, right? We call in the solar business, we call it the solar coaster. It definitely is a ride, man. It's an e-ticket ride. It loops you around up and down, sends you backward and forward, and makes you want to vomit. That's the solar coaster in a nutshell. But
I can agree.
So here's the crazy thing. Okay. So 2.5 years ago, I railed against power purchase programs. Okay. Railed against them. Used the negative side of how those things work to encourage people. I said, if you own your house, if you own your roof, you should own your solar. Right. So what's ironic about that is everything changes. That was back in a time when you could get, financing in solar at 0.99% interest. You could get it at 1.99% interest. And everything about me being a 22-year former financial advisor said, listen, this is your best option. Either pay cash for it or get a loan for it because those other ways are going to be meaningfully more expensive. Now, look what's happened in the last 2.5 years, right? Inflation took hold. We had market movements. We had an election. We've got now a really strange situation where interest rates are so high right now, financing wise. Solar is a risky investment to somebody that wants to loan money toward it. And here's the main reason why. About half the cost of solar is labor. So labor is something that you'll never recover if someone defaults. Permitting costs is something that you'll never recover if somebody defaults. And then lastly, inspection fees is something you'll never recover. So when somebody lends against solar, they really don't have any meaningful collateral. If the homeowner does not pay them, they've got, a used solar system to take back. And what kind of value does that have in the market?
Yeah.
Right? So rates right now, given that the most protected form of lending. So you're in real estate right now. What are rates right now on homes? What's a conventional rate right now on homes? 6.5, 6?
6.5, 7. Yeah.
Okay. So that's some of the most protected lending available, right? Because it's mortgage backed. If you don't pay, they got a house to take back, and it's rare that the house is worth less. Okay, but so that's the mechanism. So at that collateral and that loan. Okay, the house isn't going to depreciate 50% the day after somebody, buys it. but that's what solar does potentially because half the cost is labor. And so right now, interest rates on solar loans are 10, 11, 12%.
Oof.
So that's really huge difference in cost, right? Now, so some come back to me and say, okay, well, hey, well, why not pay cash then? Just write a check. Well, we have had inflation. We have had persistent inflation. Not that not everyone's dealing with the same amount of money they had 2.5 years ago, or the possibility of the same amount. And then I got to really thinking about it, and I thought, because somebody asked me, is cash always the best answer for solar? And I said, I don't think I can say always. And they said, well, why would you say that? And I said, well, let's assume that you're an astute investor. Okay, that you have some acumen with your investment portfolio. You've got some stocks and stuff. Is it likely that, if you pay cash for solar, realistically right now with battery technology, where it's at, you got to have batteries in solar today.
Mm-hmm.
So with batteries and the panels, realistically, you're probably a 7 to 9 year payback period for the cash. Let's err against the homeowners. Let's say it's 10 years. So if I pay cash for solar, it's going to take me 10 years to recover my capital before I start to make money. I got to get my money back first. But let's say I'm an astute investor and I take the same cash I would have put towards solar and put it into an investment now. Over the next 10 years, is it not going to hopefully grow bigger than what it is now? And then
Yeah.
that snowball rolling downhill, I might have greater growth in an investment than the benefit of savings would have been if I'd paid cash for solar. So that's part of the reason I say you can't always say that cash is the best option, because if cash prevented you from taking that money and put it into AI stocks right now or something equivalent, because we know what that's going to do to the world, then I would argue that maybe that's not the best option. So that brings me all circle around here to power purchase programs. The idea behind a power purchase program is you're just buying cheaper power from somebody other than the utility, other than PG&E. You don't have to pay for the system. You don't have to get a loan for the system. You don't have to use your cash to buy the system.
You don't have to maintain it.
You don't have to maintain it. You don't have to insure it. You don't have to do any of that. So it's the closest thing to having an alternative to PG&E where you can sign up and get energy for cheaper using solar as the backbone than anything out there. And I would argue that if we go back to what I would argue is the most fervent case toward savings, paying cash for solar. If I said, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take the cash I would have spent on solar, put it into an investment that I can manage and maintain that'll grow over the next 10 years. And then I'm going to take the savings that I achieved from going the PPA route because I didn't have to buy the system or pay cash for it. And then I'm going to add the savings to the investment account that I'm, choosing to invest instead of pay cash for. How much further ahead in 10, 15, 20 years am I going to be with that, right? So to me, it's multifaceted. It's where interest rates are right now. It's the ability to look at certain industries. I think this is a rare time. We're at the beginning of what is the closest thing to the complete shakeup of the industrial age that we had earlier in the 19th century or 20th century, and then now we're moving into AI and automation and all that other stuff. So I'm just thinking that, to me, not having to pay for the system, not having to give it a loan for a system, and then just simply getting cheaper power from a system that you didn't have to buy is better. That's why I say that.
Now, you've said solar today isn't just about offsetting your bill. It's about energy control. Tell me more a little bit about what you mean by that.
Well, I think that dovetails really well into the conversation we just had. When the NEM2 net energy metering 2.0 structure, which changed in April of 2023, that's when we moved to NEM3. When the NEM2 structure was around, our objective, my objective as a solar broker, was always to get PG&E completely out of somebody's wallet as much as we could. I mean, like, you can't get rid of the grid connection charge at like $18 a month, but like we wanted to substantially eliminate PG&E reaching in to grab fistfuls of $100 bills out of their wallet. So, and all we had to do, Megan, was build a system that produced more energy than what they consumed in a year. If you produced a system that created more energy than the homeowner consumed, then they really didn't have any utility exposure, and they wouldn't really have any challenges with PG&E. And so that was always our objective, to eliminate PG&E. Well, now, because things change, now if you export any energy to PG&E, now they keep 75% of it. So solar systems at the house cranking out energy. Anything the house isn't consuming then goes into the batteries. Okay. Once the batteries are fully charged, let's say the batteries charge fully by 4 o'clock and the sun goes down at 7. So now for that next 3 hours, that system is going to be producing energy, but now all the energy it's producing is sent to PG&E where you only get 25% back, you know? So, here's what I say. Today, solar is not about completely eliminating your PG&E bill because that's significantly difficult to do. What it's about is making the biggest dent possible in that PG&E exposure with the smartest, least amount of money possible, with the least amount of monthly obligation possible, right? So what I mean by that is now we don't have a true-up year anymore. If you use more of PG&E energies, let's say you have a marriage or death in the family, you host 5 family members for a week that you wouldn't normally host, you're going to use a lot more energy that week than you normally would. It's great to be able to source that energy from PG&E because the system didn't, because again, solar systems aren't malleable. They're not flexible. They can't, just expand because you had 5 family members in the house. So as a result of that, you would source that surplus energy from PG&E. Great. I'm getting 95% of my energy from an alternative source, and I got to get 5% from PG&E or 10% or whatever it ends up being. I just want to be smart about that and share because I've seen people, and you'll remember this, I've seen people step over dollars trying to pick up 25 cents. Meaning I've seen people overbuild the system trying to completely eliminate their PG&E bill where they end up benefiting PG&E indirectly because the system's so big now and trying to do that they create so much surplus energy that all that surplus energy is going to PG&E where they keep 75% of it. So again, it's about being strategic. It's about being smart. It's about understanding how it works. And that's another kind of selfish plug of a broker here. When we live and breathe this stuff, we're going to see it differently than somebody that isn't versed. And this is part of that kind of back and forth education, knowledge, and ultimately wisdom, hence SolarWise, that we want to provide to people that understand, that the objective is to make the biggest dent possible with the smartest money possible. All right. So that concludes this episode of that interview that I had with Megan Blackwell. Thank you so much, Megan, for your time, your interest, your knowledge, and the shared conversation that we had for everyone's benefit on how solar works. If you're so inclined, if you'd like to explore solar and or speak with us directly as solar brokers, here's all you simply need to do. Take out your smartphone. All you got to do is text to YouTube, just like you're aware, YouTube to 84503. If you text YouTube to 84503, my team will be in touch very quickly to help you to understand solar, help you understand your usage, help you to understand your property and property level concerns, and see if we can present some options that can help you and your family save money. So thank you so much for watching the Graybeard Talks Solar channel. A little wisdom goes a long way toward turning sunshine into serious savings. Don't forget to smash the like, share, and subscribe buttons. And let me leave you with this. Stay charged, stay informed, and keep shining, my friends.
Thanks for listening to SolarWise, Graybeard Talks Solar. Please visit our website, solarwiseco.com, to learn more. And we will see you next time on SolarWise.